Okay, we're live now.
Cool. Yeah, I can see the attendance. I can see there's nobody in here yet. Most people just join exactly on one with these things.
Yeah, generally, because I think Outlook gives people a reminder as well.
Oh,
so
yeah.
jump in
Okay.
there. From what I can see, it's actually already auto recording as well, Steve, because I checked the option.
Okay, you've got people joining now. So.
Thanks for joining, everyone. We'll be kicking the webinar off in just a few moments. Thanks. Thanks to those that have just joined us. We'll be kicking off in just a minute. Thanks. Okay, I think we're going to get rolling, guys. It's nearly 1:05 here, so I think anyone that's coming a bit later, they should be able to catch up. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for our IT Smart Solutions webinar. As you can see from the title screen, we're going to be having a chat about Microsoft 365 collaboration techniques today. So really appreciate everyone's time in joining. It's fantastic to see some familiar names and faces from our last webinar as well. And obviously we host these quite often, so looking forward to potentially seeing people here today in our next webinar as well. So let's kick things off. Just as a note to everyone, we will be recording the presentation today. So for the people that aren't able to make it, they'll be able to access a copy, but also if anyone would like a copy after the webinar's over to reference in the future, or if there's anyone that they know of that would like to watch the webinar back, you can absolutely let me know and I can get that across to you. And as you would have seen as well on the registration page and our posting on LinkedIn, everyone's going to get a free $25 Uber Eats gift voucher for coming today, which is fantastic. So we'll be emailing those out to all attendees at the end of the webinar so that you can buy yourself some free lunch. Now, if you've got any questions, there's a Q&A function built into Zoom. So if I could ask if anyone's got any queries, if they could pop it instead of the general public chat in Zoom, if they could pop it into the Q&A function, and we can reference those at the end and help if you've got any queries or anything that you don't understand at any point throughout the webinar. So there's no silly questions. Put any concerns you have in there, and it's no problem at all. We'll take a look at them for you. So for those who don't know me, I'm Joel. Obviously, that's me pictured there. I'm a solutions consultant with the business IT Smart Solutions. I just passed a little over 3 years with the business the other week. And so I'm responsible for designing solutions for our new and existing customers. Now, if you're not familiar with our business, IT Smart Solutions, we're a specialist small and medium business IT managed service provider based in Sydney. We've been specialising in the SMB sector for nearly 20 years now in Sydney, and it's really a passion of ours, which is why we use these webinars as a way to bring knowledge and value to our small and medium-sized business customers. And we're firm believers that having a smaller amount of staff or a smaller IT budget in comparison to a larger sort of corporation shouldn't be a limiting factor in ensuring that you have the same IT performance and IT experience. So we want to bring to small businesses still the best of the best when it comes to IT across the board, regardless of your size. So in terms of Microsoft 365 and the collaboration techniques that we're going to be discussing today, I want to kick off with just talking a little bit about a not-for-profit program that Microsoft have recently started called Tech for Social Impact. And we're very honored and privileged as a Microsoft partner to be picked as an ambassador for this program. And what this program does is Microsoft, for eligible not-for-profits, actually offer a large amount of the services in Microsoft 365 that we're going to be talking about today for significantly discounted rates, but there is also some that's actually entirely free. In particular, for the first 10 users for eligible not-for-profits, a Microsoft 365 Business Premium license for the first 10 staff is entirely free. Beyond that, it's significantly discounted. It's sort of more than 75–80% off. And so if you are from a not-for-profit, or you know someone that's a not-for-profit, particularly if you're not sure or they're not currently taking advantage of this deal, please feel free to have them reach out or get them to be in touch. There's significant savings that are able to be taken advantage of for not-for-profits, as opposed to engaging Microsoft as a direct commercial customer. And it's a passion of ours and a big piece of our sort of values culture here at the business, that we use IT as a method to give back to society. And Microsoft have been doing some great work and statistics around this Tech for Social Impact program in particular. And the NFPs that have been a part of this program have actually seen really significant increases in funding to their mission statement and to their cause as a result of the additional productivity that Microsoft 365's allowing them to have. So, it's beneficial not just in an IT sense, but in an overall, sort of goals perspective for the not-for-profit businesses, what Microsoft are doing and the opportunities they're providing for not-for-profits are actually helping them better achieve their mission and better achieve their goals to ultimately help people and have a bigger social impact. And so that's something that we're very proud to be a part of, and would love to chat to any not-for-profits specifically about any of the things that we're going to touch on today. So I want to just sort of do a quick recap and define what exactly is Microsoft 365, which we're going to be talking about today, particularly because there's been some recent sort of naming convention changes to the lineup of products from Microsoft, and it can be a bit confusing, and there might be some things that are now part of the suite that you weren't aware were no longer there. So the first part, as you can see from this slide, is Office 365. So the product is no longer called Office 365. It's now called Microsoft 365, and that encompasses the Office part of things. So that's all of your applications here, your day-to-day Word, PowerPoint, Excel. You'll notice OneNote is not on there. OneNote is actually now being built into Windows 10 itself. So you'll notice, without an Office license, if you pull a Windows 10 machine out of the box now, OneNote is built into that. It looks sort of slightly a little bit different and behaves a little bit differently, but OneNote is now becoming a staple in the Windows 10 piece, and the Office 365 part of the overall Microsoft 365 picture is what you can see on your screen here. So the second part of what comes with Microsoft 365, the product, is these cloud services that you can see here. So Exchange is referring to what's called Exchange Online, which is their cloud-based email service. And so there's a key differentiation to make between Outlook and Exchange. Outlook, the application which you saw on the previous slide, is purely an application for accessing email. So you can use Outlook to actually access Hotmail, Gmail. So Exchange is the pairing where the actual back-end infrastructure that Microsoft provide for a cloud email solution. So you can use Outlook with a variety of email providers on its own. The Exchange pairing, that's also another piece of the Microsoft 365 puzzle, is how that all sort of ties into a cloud-based solution as one. Now, SharePoint is their cloud-based document management system. So it's ties in heavily with OneDrive as well. And it's sort of how, from a browser now, files are managed and accessed and shared within a team. And the other piece is Teams as well, which is probably what we're going to be focusing on most heavily today. And it's probably sort of the core piece of this whole puzzle in terms of driving collaboration and productivity and it's probably the most bleeding edge of all the pieces of this puzzle here. And particularly with COVID and remote working, there was a massive uptick in Teams. And so Microsoft made a real pivot in terms of focusing on Teams more and developing Teams more. And I think it's really topical. I know our last webinar, we sort of touched on the COVID piece, but if you look in the news at the moment, you know, we've had these floods over the past few days as well. And it's just sort of going to continue proving that, you know, if it's not COVID or floods or bushfires or something else, you know, the time really is now to start to shift towards a cloud-based sort of modern workplace solution that allows you to work from home, work from a hotel, work from an airport, work from an internet cafe. It's now sort of industry best practice and a much better solution to no longer sort of be shackled to on-premise infrastructure and servers and that kind of thing. And so as we go on through the slides, I'm going to give a little more information about how that all ties together as a bigger picture. And so finally, there's also the security and management piece of Microsoft 365. So you can see here Azure Information Protection and Intune. And there's some really sort of cool features with how Microsoft 365 integrates with Windows 10 as a whole. So for example, with Azure Information Protection, we can sort of do things like remote wipe of devices. So if someone has a corporate device that they lose it on the train or it gets stolen and you're concerned, you know, we need to wipe that's got sensitive data on it, business critical data that's confidential. The Azure Information Protection piece and the Intune piece, it's no longer just managing the data in the cloud, it's then managing the devices that access said data in the cloud. And so previously, if a device like that was lost, you really wouldn't have any recourse. And now with the M365 suite, it ties in so heavily into that whole Windows 10 piece that it can wipe the machine for you. It does all of that automatically. It can lock down, you know, certain applications in Windows 10. So in corporate settings, you know, if there's, if you want to say block, you know, streaming services or streaming programs because it is, say, a corporate laptop as opposed to a personal laptop, there's a whole heap of management and security around that where you can, you know, make sure that corporate devices are being used for a specific purpose, and there's lots of logging and auditing around that. So I guess the bigger picture, there may be some people possibly tuning into the webinar that are still using entirely on-premise infrastructure, or maybe even some sort of a hybrid model as well, sort of a mix of both. And so I thought it'd just be good to sort of, I guess, touch on why moving to the cloud and some of the benefits of the cloud, as well as dispelling some myths. And so the first one is the increased availability, and that's what I was talking about a moment ago. That's, you know, being able to access anything from anywhere using any device so that the data is available. It's not you know, reliant on VPN or remote desktop. You know, if the power goes out in your office, or if there's a flood in your office and the server or that gets, you know, wet, that used to be a massive problem for businesses before this move to M365. Now with Microsoft taking care of all of that cloud-based redundancy and things for you, that is, you know, that part of that software as a service is Microsoft manage all of that risk for you. And so there's a guaranteed uptime in Microsoft's terms and conditions that say that 99.95% of the time throughout the year, these services will be available to you. Greater scalability is another big one. I mean, unfortunately, with COVID, we saw quite a lot of businesses sort of had to downsize and let go of staff. And the thing you see with these sort of pay-as-you-go software as a service type things is, you know, they're all month-to-month subscriptions. And so unfortunately, if you did say have to let go of 10 staff, you can remove those 10 licenses and your monthly invoice, your bill scales with that. Whereas if you were sort of in the old CapEx, capital expenditure versus OpEx, operational expenditure type model, if pre-COVID you had spent, you know, sort of thousands of dollars on a server that's got capacity for 25 staff, and then COVID hits and you've had to let 10 of those go, that's not a dynamic or a scalable solution. You know, that server is as is. And so if you had have been caught in that situation, you're sort of paying for infrastructure and extra capacity that's no longer needing to be used. You can't now change a server that was initially hard spec'd and hard built to support 25 staff and then shrink that down to say 15. So there's really massive room for cost savings in that regard with cloud-based solutions. So increased accessibility, again, that is referring to, you know, being able to share among teams, among different devices. It's really bridging that gap, particularly working from home. It's also allowing sharing to external third parties as well, which is built well into the solution. So reduced cost, I touched on that a little bit. Security built in, and I think a big concern that people come to me with when they're talking about moving to the cloud is, you know, is my data safe? Do I own my data? And the answer is yes to both. So contrary to popular belief, Microsoft don't snoop through any of your data in their cloud. They don't sell any information about your data or your browsing and usage habits to any sort of third parties or advertisers. All of the data is kept in Australia. Microsoft staff cannot access your data. This is support staff. Say if you were to ever have to, you know, deal with Microsoft's team, they cannot access that data without your explicit permission first, and then it gives you logs and records of that. So you absolutely do still own your data. If you were to want to leave Microsoft at any time, you can request the deletion of your data. So it's once you terminate your service with Microsoft, they no longer keep your data to then use in the future. And likewise, you can actually request a copy of your data at any time. So it's not like Microsoft own your data. If you ever needed to take that data and move to another provider, you're still the owner of that data. And so I think that's really important. Automatic updates as well is a big one. You know, Microsoft are updating all of the software on the cloud side. And so that's really lowering overheads in terms of, you know, constantly needing to run updates, you know, the IT support, admin that comes with that. And obviously what that does as well is it ensures that you're constantly up to date, which is fantastic. So you're always dealing with the latest version of software. Updates are getting pushed out all the time. And so it gives you the benefit to take advantage of all the great features that are constantly getting added to M365. Previously, you know, you would have gone to Officeworks and you pay a, you know, $300 one-time fee to purchase Office 2016, and Office 2016 stays as is until 3 years later when Office 2019 comes out and you buy a new license outright, cost up front, and you go through the whole process again. And so that's no longer an issue with these monthly SaaS services, you know, and it's very similar to the way you manage things in probably your personal life as well. I mean, if we look at the shift, you know, lots of people now pay monthly for Spotify, likewise with Netflix, you know, so this move away from sort of CapEx to OpEx, I think is really important, and keeping that subscription going keeps up with that automatic updates and making sure you had the latest software, like I just said. So accessibility that I touched on a moment ago is something that I want to drill a little bit deeper into briefly. And in particular, the 24/7 global access and being able to access from phones, tablets, laptops, any sort of device is really powerful. People will probably remember during COVID, shelves were absolutely bare when it came to webcams. You know, everyone was moving to working from home and webcams were just getting snatched up left, right, and center. The fantastic thing about, say, Teams being, you know, available as a mobile app on a phone or a tablet is you can actually join meetings and use the front-facing or the rear-facing camera on your tablet or your phone. So, you know, it's really bridging a gap. You know, everyone's got a mobile device these days, and we spend hours of time on them. And so it's you know, really powerful to be able to take advantage of that and no longer be limited just to a desktop or a laptop PC. And so this here is just showing a little bit like what the Android app looks like for M365. And a common concern that sort of people come to me with is you know, they're concerned that when they move to the cloud, their staff are going to have to learn new software all over again. You know, it's going to be entirely different. And what Microsoft has done is they've put a real lot of time into the design and the user interface of all these Office solutions, and the user experience, and making sure that they're uniform and similar to the rest of the Office and Windows and Microsoft products that you've previously used. So the Office experience or the Windows 10 experience, if you've used any of these before, there's no real steep learning curve. It's a very seamless transition. Everything looks more or less the same, and so it's not I guess sort of this big sort of scary monster of, you know, having to relearn a brand new productivity suite. It's actually, the transition's quite natural. And so you can see on this next slide here, again, very similar thing in iOS 2, and this goes for Mac as well. Obviously, Windows is a Microsoft product, as is Office, and so that would lead some people to think that, you know, it's not supported on Mac whatsoever, and that's just not the case anymore as well. Mac is again, they've put a lot of effort into bringing Mac up to speed and making it, you know, identical to the Windows alternatives as well. So it's really powerful for your staff to be able to pick any device that they prefer. If people prefer Macs and they're more productive on Macs, you're not needing to, you know, force them to use a Windows PC. You've got this really great universality that you can see here on the screen. Now, one sort of thing that I guess is really common when people come to me is, you know, a lot of people are using Microsoft as a productivity suite, and paying for a lot of these features that they're not using. And so in comparison to alternatives like, say, Slack or Zoom, or Cisco WebEx, is, you know, if you're already using Microsoft as a productivity suite, Teams on a lot of these things are already included. And so you'll see here, this is a screenshot from my browser, just looking at some of the Microsoft 365 plans. You can see that Teams is included in all of those. And so if you're using Microsoft Office and then paying for, say, Slack or Zoom on top, you're paying an additional cost that Teams can actually slot in and take care of for you. So not only is it a better product and it integrates better, but it's minimizing costs as well. I've had sort of quite a few people that, I mean, as well as Slack and Zoom, another common one is people using Box or Dropbox. Again, Microsoft Office has OneDrive built in. And so sometimes you see businesses, they sort of come to me and there's this doubling up of licenses and subscriptions and sort of across all these different services. And by just moving to Microsoft on its own and the software that's already there and being paid for as part of your existing licensing, you can actually reduce your operating costs in terms of IT software by up to 50%. So it's really quite significant. And I think this graph here does a fantastic job of showing that. So, I mean, Microsoft Office Business Standard is $17.20 per person per month, and that's for the entire suite. So that's not just Teams, Outlook, OneDrive, SharePoint. That's, you know, Word, Excel, everything else. Zoom on its own or Slack on its own is more expensive than that entire suite. So, you know, you're paying more for one piece of software than you would with Microsoft paying for an entire suite. So the cost difference is actually really quite significant. Now, I touched on the integration a little bit, and identity management is what we call this concept. And so you can see from this screenshot here, this is a little bit of sort of some of the logging and auditing that we get around managing people's identities. So an identity being an account or a user or a person. And so the way Teams ties into the rest of the Microsoft 365 suite, we can do really cool things like track messages to and from people. You know, has someone been sent a malicious link or a malicious file in Teams? Has their account been breached? With Slack and Zoom and these other things, because they're all sort of disparate systems, there's a real gap, and you know, there's no way to track, say, if someone downloads a company file and then sends it to someone via Slack, you know, with critical info, or if someone's Slack account gets hacked. The they don't gel together nicely. And so the great thing about Microsoft 365 is we can tie everything into the one bundle and have this security and this management and reduce business risk that you don't see in other suites, or having a disparate sort of bunch of different individual pieces of software not working together in alignment. So these stats here really show that uptake in Teams that I mentioned before. So the 874% growth, obviously absolutely massive. And this was all in the span of several days or several weeks when COVID first kicked off. And it's really a testament to that scalability and that accessibility that I was talking about. Is, you know, Microsoft, the capacity that they have to be able to expand so largely and accommodate so many different people overall, but also simultaneously and from such a wide variety of countries, just goes to show that, you know, this is really a scalable and flexible solution that does have capacity, and it's reliable as well. It can handle this throughput and this bandwidth. So these here are Gartner, they're called Magic Quadrants, and Gartner do these every year for quite a variety of different tables based on different products. They're really the gold standard of this kind of data. And so on the left, you can see this is for meeting solutions. And then we also have one for calling solutions. And this is called now unified communications. And so what that means is sort of unifying or bringing together what was previously all separate parts of communication. So your meetings, your calling, your audio, your live events, your instant messaging, it's all unified into the one solution. And so you can see in both of these, in terms of Teams for meeting and Teams for calling, Microsoft in terms of ability to execute is the highest there. And in terms of completeness of vision as well, they're quite competitive at the top. If you were to sort of take their position in both of the graphs together and merge them, Microsoft is in terms of industry research data from Gartner, which again, like I said, is very reliable and looked to by a lot of industry leaders as the real cream of the crop data. Microsoft is a really clear winner in this type of scenario. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to swap out of this presentation here and just swap into a brief live demo of some of the things that Teams can do and some of these features that I've been mentioning, and sort of show you how it works, give you a little first-hand look. So if you'll just allow me to briefly swap over here, it won't be a moment. Okay, so everyone should be able to see my screen there. Now, this is a test team sort of setup that I've made using Microsoft's test tools. So you will have to excuse sort of some of the generic fake messages and fake names I'm using. But this is what Teams looks like here. And one important thing I'd really like to touch on is Teams calling. And so that's not your audio call from person to person, but it's a really new service. It's only been in Australia for 6 months, so it's very new. And it allows you to make landlines, so your regular phone calls like you'd make on a mobile or a handset via Teams. And so the fantastic thing about this is, again, you're moving away from on-site infrastructure like a phone server or a PBX server, and you're moving away from, you know, clunky handsets, headsets as well. So with the Teams app on an iPad or a phone, you know, you can make calls using AirPods, you know, headphones, Beats, whatever it may be. You know, there's no need for a clunky headset, and it only works, you know, or a handset, it only works while you're at your desk, you know, and you've got your base unit there. You know, any device, you can make these calls now. And I'd really love for people that are interested in this or still have on-site phone infrastructure or using handsets to reach out. So the great thing about this is, given that, say we're in Sydney and it uses a 02 number landline as dialing out, with the Teams app at home, if your staff member is working from home, making the Teams calling it still shows as a 02 number with caller ID. So it's really great in that you've still got this accessibility from sort of 24/7 global access, like I've spoken about before, but it's giving you that landline caller ID. And so that's great in sort of really when you're bringing people, it identifies, you know, a little bit of regionality and says, you know, hey, you know, we're in this state. It doesn't look like, you know, a private number or something from, you know, a different calling code from a different state or a different country. And so that's really good to be able to, you know, it means that, you know, everyone can call out consistently from the one company number. So it looks really sort of professional and uniform across the board. You're no longer sort of needing to rely on staff using their own mobile phone and then, you know, you're needing to reimburse them, this and that. So Teams calling is really fantastic. It handles voicemail, you know, ring groups, call groups, IVR, which is an automated message, you know, and it's sort of press 1 for this, press 2 for that. Really customizable, fantastic solution. And so absolutely bear in mind that some of these features I'm about to go through in a moment, there is a calling element on top that's really fantastic, and I'd highly recommend. So the first thing you'll see here is this sort of highlighted, I guess, name or team. And these are called mentions. And so these aren't just during Teams, they're actually in Outlook emails. It's a feature across the entirety of Microsoft 365 now, and it allows you to actually directly refer to someone. So a team, like a group or an individual person. There's a whole variety of settings in terms of these send people alerts or email alerts. And so it really sort of lets you hone in and say, you know, hey, such and such, I need you to do this project. And it then delivers them an email and says, you know, hey, someone has mentioned you, you know, you need to do this. Fantastic way of assigning tasks to people and making sure there's that follow-up and things aren't getting lost. You know, it's directly referencing someone and then it's showing them in Office 365, you know, hey, you've been mentioned, someone's directly referenced you by name. Now you'll see here as well, this important message. So there's a variety of different flags or styles you can put on a message. So you can make it important or you can make it an announcement. And so it changes sort of some of the coloring and the icons and things. And that's a fantastic way of, you know, everyone's so inundated with emails and messages these days. This is a great way to have something stand out and not get lost amongst the noise. So it's, you know, no longer, oh, sorry, I didn't see that email, or, you know, I missed that, or, you know, this is really bright in your face, you know, hey team, this is important, you know, you need to look at this. So that's a fantastic feature. You know, it makes these things, it's not just a bland email that, you know, people skim read over. You know, it really allows you to customize these things so that people are seeing what's important and that's being filtered to the top. Now, it's not just the instant messaging as well. There is the files side of things. And sorry, let me swap to where some files are. Now, any team discussion inside of Teams, all of these files actually come straight into the back end of SharePoint here that you can see in this other tab. So the two, they're not separate solutions now, they're built in. And so that means if I share a document, as you can see, like I've done with this test here for, say, Adele, you know, I've said under test group, general, you know, hey, can you make sure you've done this, referencing this document here. This is all kept in SharePoint. So you've still got your same permissions and layout and all the other features of SharePoint. So things that you're discussing in Teams, they're not entirely separate. The files aren't going to go missing. If people work off the document inside Teams or inside SharePoint, it all syncs up and mirrors each other. So it's no longer, oh, you know, sorry, I was working on version 2, but we've got a version 3 now, and then you end up with 2 separate sources of a document. It's all over the place. There's simultaneous real-time co-authoring. So what you'll see if I come into this document here, everyone gets a little icon of theirs. So it's by default blank initials, like you can see JP for my name, but you can actually upload photos. And that shows internally and externally, and that's a really nice feature, I think, particularly while you're working from home. You know, to still kind of particularly in larger organizations, or if you've got new staff, it helps identify people and know who you're talking to. And so what will happen is if someone else is in this document editing it with me, their little circle with their name will pop up here. And so you can actually see real time and chat with people, edit things, make comments seamlessly. The other thing you'll notice is that I'm in Microsoft Word right now in the browser. And so there is the option to open it in the desktop application, Word, but if you've not got the software installed, there is still a vast majority of the functionality available inside the browser. And so that's fantastic. Touching on the SharePoint backend again a little bit, another really fantastic feature is meetings or live events like this one now. If you record them to watch afterwards, like we're doing with today's webinar, it automatically deposits the recording into SharePoint. So it's no longer Zoom has spit out the recording and then we need to take that and upload it to Dropbox, and it's all clunky. This, you record the webinar inside Teams, or you record your meeting inside Teams, straight into your document storage system inside 365. So it's all about this integration, not just between Teams, but all the other components of the Office and Microsoft Suite as well. And so what I've done here, for example, is, let me find this, is I've made, let's call it a test project. You can add tabs along the top here and actually integrate not just other Microsoft apps, but a heap of other third-party apps. There's so many. So Salesforce is a really common one, Trello. And so what you can see here is this sort of pretend user, Henrietta. I've added a tab up the top here for OneNote. And so this is sort of my, poor drawing of like a test, flow chart. But the same goes for meetings. You can draw like a whiteboard, you can draw your notes. These are all saved into OneNote, and again, tying into SharePoint as well. And so, lots of people still like to take written notes by hand. With Microsoft's device, the Surface, there is the Surface Pen as well, which is a touchscreen device. So there's still that sort of capability to bridge the gap between, if you sort of don't like typing notes, you want that sort of hard, analog feel of pen and paper, you can still do that digitally as well. Now, likewise, you can actually take a photo of a piece of paper and again, automatically share into Teams or SharePoint, and it'll actually do optical character recognition as well. So it can convert handwriting to text. Now, another cool feature that I've enabled here is real-time translation. So Teams can translate to English from any language. And this doesn't just go for offline written texts, but real-time in a webinar like this, you can enable closed captioning. And so using Microsoft's leading edge artificial intelligence, it will actually real-time transcribe what you're saying in English. And that can go into your meeting recordings as well. That's fantastic. Sometimes if someone's got a poor connection or your volume's a bit low and you miss what they're saying, or, maybe you get distracted, being able to read the subtitles or the closed captioning, I find is a fantastic way to go along. And it will actually do that real-time translation as well. So someone can be speaking to you in a different language other than English from wherever it may be in the world. And it will real-time transcribe those closed captions from their language into your language, which I think really just breaks down some of these barriers in terms of being able to collaborate globally with people, all across the world. Fantastic feature, and it does all of this real time. Now, you'll see here, so you've got private messages, so not everything has to be in these groups here. You can contact people directly, share files with them directly, have these little breakout subgroups. So you can see here, I've made sort of a pretend one called random. And if you just want this for general chit chat, there's support for, emojis, GIFs, videos, all those sorts of things. And again, if someone's linking a video to YouTube or sharing a file, like I said before, with that identity management tie-in, it scans messages inside Teams to make sure the file isn't a virus, to make sure the link isn't sending to somewhere dangerous. So you can still sort of have these loose channels where, it's not necessarily work related, but you sort of break everything down into a, subcategory, and your staff are still safe and protected by all the security built in. And so, look, one final thing I do want to show, and I mean, look, this is such a vast product, both Teams and Office 365. I could fill multiple hours about this, and so I'd be more than happy after the webinar to demonstrate with people further and answer more questions and show them more of the features. But I think what Teams is really relying on to break down some of these barriers and help people collaborate and remain agile is the search function. And it is so incredibly powerful now that there's been a shift away from sort of breaking down groups and folder structure into departments and teams. And so what I've done here is I made a test file called 2021 Company Vision. And you can see when it loads in a moment, it's got some, just some pretend key points there. Now, the old way of searching, is really, you could only search for the exact file name or the exact location of the exact team. You'll notice one of the key points there was ramp up productivity. Now, if I'm looking for that document and I go, oh gosh, I can't remember, was it person A or person B, or was it from this meeting or this team, or what, I'm so lost, I don't know where this file is, or I can't remember which subfolder it's in. What I can do is I can type, even if I just do a wildcard, for example, and swap to files, you can see there, it doesn't just look at the folder, the location path, or the file name. It actually now searches text inside the document. And so in terms of, you no longer need to worry about, oh, is everything stored nicely in our folder structure, teams, this, that. It's so agile that, all you need to do is remember a word, or even a portion of a word or a key phrase. You can use this wildcard, which is, fills in the blanks, and you can find files anywhere. And so it's about breaking down, that old sort of archaic, folder structure, and everything's got to be really siloed. And if it falls outside of that structure or that silo, it's a mess and it doesn't work, and everything's broken. People can't find it. This can find people, files, text, anything going as far back as you like in an instant. It will search content inside documents. That was just 3 dot points there, but imagine if that was 7, 8, 10 A4 pages chock full of text. You can do a search in an instant for one keyword in that, thousands and thousands of words in 10 A4 pages, and Teams will search through that, reference it, and find it for you immediately. And so, it's really just allowing you to access whatever data you need for your job and to be productive at your fingertips in a moment's notice. So, look, like I said, this is so vast and so expansive, and we do have limited time. So I'm going to actually hand over now to Kieron, who is a great partner of ours. He is a math guru, which I absolutely am not. And he's just going to touch on some of the awesome power and data analytics, data science built into 365. And I think the most telling statistic about this is 97% of all Fortune 500 companies use Power BI. And I think that's, you can't get much closer to 100%. And so I think that really demonstrates, if you want to be on par with the big players and the industry leaders that are making a lot of money, there's not just the unified communications and productivity suite that I've spoken about. There's this data analytics and data science piece as well that's incredibly powerful. And so I'll hand over to Kieron now. He's going to Kieron, my apologies, and he's going to chat a little bit more about this for you guys, Charlie.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. And I have to say, Joe, I've learned a few things about Teams now in that presentation, so thank you very much. So everybody, a little bit about me first. I am an accountant by profession, but please, seriously, don't hold that against me. I have worked my way up to CFO positions in the medical device industry, and I've always been hands-on. and have always had a passion for data and automation and just making the business work. But I am now proud to be in a position to be helping businesses every day to transform through visibility. But this visibility covers a lot more than you might think. It is about your data, processes, and people. So following on from Joel's demonstration, I'm going to talk through some of the Microsoft 365 capabilities that you might not be aware of, but should spark your imagination. Due to time, we are going to go through this rather quickly, so just hang on. So firstly, here's a list of the icons of Microsoft applications that I'm sure some of you are aware of and no doubt love, so Excel, OneDrive, Outlook. But Microsoft, as you know, is one of the largest organizations in the world, and they really just do not stay still. They are always looking at the problems that we all face and designing and building new tools to help us to overcome them. So I want to look at 3 of these tools and give you an idea of what they can do. So we're going to look at very quickly Power BI, Power Apps, and Power Automate. So firstly, these 3 tools are part of the Microsoft Power Platform. But what is Power Platform? So I could give you a explanation like this, where it allows you to develop and build complex business solutions, analyze and draw data visualizations, automate a business process, or build virtual agents for communication. You know, sounds great. I'm out of breath already just saying that. But what does it really do? So putting it simply, it fundamentally changes how you work. It is going to take everything that you have in your environment and make it easier and make it simpler. It's going to create structure and processes where you thought there were none. The way I like to say is that it allows you to visualize, empower, and automate. So let's have a look at these tools and see what they can do for you. So Power BI. So first, I need to explain BI. So BI is business intelligence, and it all centers on taking all of your data and using these from all the various different sources and giving you clarity and enabling you to make data-driven decisions. It brings everything into one place so you can make those informed decisions. Now, we have all seen dashboards like this. We have seen financial information. We have seen revenue, expenses. And you know, all of this information is being used in Power BI here, and it's being presented as dashboards. But what I want to really get over to everybody here is that data is not just financial information. As an example, let's look at one of my clients. They're a personal trainer organization called MP Living, and we're working with them to take their data and provide an online and web app to add value to their clients and keep them accountable. So this information you see here, firstly, is not real. It's a sample data set. I wouldn't want to be showing you somebody's personal goals and information, but you can see in here that the data can come in many different forms. Here we are looking at goals, body stats, and personal bests. And we're actually going to take this further through Power BI and develop with MP Living another area of the dashboard where the client's PT can directly leave notes of encouragement, program changes, and support. And through Power BI, we're also able to give access to this information through web apps on the client's phone. So with Power BI, it is all about where your imagination takes you and how you're going to create and use your data. So let's keep moving on through the rest of the Power Platform apps. So here we have Power Apps. And as the name suggests, it allows you to create internal organization apps that can be deployed quickly. So here's an example of an app that's actually just gone live this week, and it's for a national liquor distributor. So they've had bottlenecks with some of their warehousing and delivery and picking processes. Information just wasn't flowing around quick enough. The warehouse operators were taking time to bring information back up. Customer service were creating a bottleneck with them trying to go through all of the information. So we took this opportunity to provide them an app to collect information and provide it throughout the whole team. So now they can easily collect information about picking slips, stock receipts, and proof of delivery with these apps connected back to SharePoint. And therefore the whole organization is able to look at this. So like imagine the processes that you could put through an app that can sit on your desktop, your tablet, or your phone. So you can even see here that we have an instant report button on the bottom right-hand side. So here we're enabling the employees to report an instant, whether it's an accident in the warehouse or on the road, or damaged stock, or even building maintenance issues that need to be rectified. So again, I'm going to say it that these apps are really just limited by your imagination and where you really want to bring them. So the next one here is Power Automate. But I have to say, if you haven't already been excited by just what we've seen briefly for Power BI and Power Apps, I'm pretty sure that Power Automate should just really blow your mind. So Power Automate is Microsoft's answer to RPA. So RPA is robotic process automation. To you and I, it's all about automating workflows. It's about moving those processes that we do manually every day and instead having them automatically triggered. We are going to be able to get information to the right people at the right time and without any delay. So following on from the example of the Power app that we just had a look at, I want to show you the background of a very simple yet extremely effective automation. So when an employee enters information into the Power app, we want something to happen. There's no point in doing that and it doesn't create something. It doesn't create an action. So therefore, the first thing we want to do is tell someone something has happened. What we have here is an automation that is triggered by a new item being created in our SharePoint location. And from there, an email goes out to our designated recipient. In this case, it's an email address picking slips. And it informs the person that a new item has been created, the sales order number, the status, and any comments that need to be put on it. So also, if you did not actually want to send an email, you can link this in through Teams and it can go to the Teams through that Teams environment. So straight away, this automation has enabled customer service to control the process and to take action quickly. We have just saved time and eliminated waste. So Power Automate can do an awful lot more than just what we're seeing here. Unfortunately, we just don't have the time to go through all of it. But as kind of an eye-opener, there are 466 connectors that Microsoft have for Power Automate. And I actually had to check that this morning because they continuously add more. On their official documentation, they mentioned 200. So you can see that it's already jumped significantly already. So we can even go further. We can actually start automating tweets that come into our Twitter account and keeping records and linking it with MailChimp. So, you know, I'm sounding like a broken record, but definitely the possibilities with these tools are only limited by our imagination. So as you can see, I've really had to fly through an overview of these extremely capable tools, but I am hoping that it has sparked some ideas as to how you can actually utilize them in your own business. But one important thing, remember, depending on your actual Microsoft 365 license, you more than likely already have these tools. You already have access to them. You can start looking at them right now. So myself and the team here in Accountability Visibility are here to bridge that gap between Microsoft Power Platform and your pressing business needs. So working with Joel and his colleagues, we can really transform your business through visibility. So thank you for taking the time out to actually listen to me talking about something I am passionate about. And I really could talk about this for hours. But we are all actually very lucky that I do have to throw it back to Joel now. But look, remember the Q&A session. If you have any questions, please do put them there and I'd be very happy to answer them. So back to you, Joel.
Great, thank you very much for that, mate. That was fantastic. And yeah, I apologize. Like I am conscious of time. I have yapped on a little bit and left you a very small window. So I do apologize. Know that we're getting very close. And look, you actually took some words out of my mouth there, in that this is something that people are already paying for if they have an Office 365 subscription. And so again, it's about that cost reduction piece, instead of paying for Tableau or, Python or all these other alternatives. So look, I'm quickly going to swap back to my screen again and very quickly go through the very final piece of my presentation, because I am conscious of time and would like to get to everyone's Q&A ASAP. So I will do that now. So get to where we were, apologies. Okay, so and look, Kieran touched on this as well in that Microsoft are always developing their platform. They're always looking at problems. They're always improving. And so this is Microsoft Viva. It's not currently available. It's in what's called preview, which is like the insiders program or the beta testing. So it's not just ready quite yet, but it will be ready very soon. And again, with a cloud subscription, anytime something new is developed, like I said, you get the updates, you get the software. The same with the Power Apps Kieran talked about. They're always adding things. So Microsoft Viva really came out of the COVID lockdown. It's meant to be, the world's first employee experience platform. It's meant to, again, build on top of Teams, Office 365, Power Apps, and some of these things all together again in a new platform that's about keeping employees in touch while working remotely. And so look, there's 4 parts, and again, this is all sort of subject to change. It's very early days, but absolutely know that Microsoft are always innovating, and this is in the pipeline, and this is something you could be using as part of your Microsoft subscription soon. So there's the Viva Connections that you can see here. Connections is in talking to people, talking to staff. You've got Insights. That's referring to data analytics and some of that visibility and business intelligence that Kieran talked about, insights into data. So you can see some of these stats here that it's pulling on your screen in the image. There's Learning. Again, that's, sort of talking about aggregating data together, news, communications, also using a lot of that artificial intelligence that Microsoft have. And then Topics. And so that's more sort of a Teams piece and keywords based, So absolutely keep your eye out for this. This will be getting implemented very soon. It's a real hot topic. And it's the thing that IT managers are sort of focusing on most now, particularly with COVID and the floods. So I'm sure Microsoft will be expediting this process ASAP. So absolutely keep in tune, and if this is something you're interested in and you're not subscribed to Microsoft, absolutely have a chat. So next steps, look, we'll go through the Q&A now, myself and Kieran, because there might be some questions for him too. And like I said, if there's any additional queries beyond this for myself or Kieran, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to Kieran, or I can put you in touch with Kieran. Like we said, Power Apps and Teams are both massive suites that are incredibly powerful and really customizable. And so we only have a limited amount of time today, but please, if you want to know more, you're more than welcome to reach out to both of us and we can take a look at that for you. So let me quickly take a look at the Q&A here. I did see one come through. So I can see Steve has done a great job of answering Damien for me. Unfortunately, there is an SMS through Teams at the moment, was Damien's question. There are third-party apps that tie in and do this for you as part of those quite large integration options of integrations you can select. As I mentioned, it is on the roadmap to be implemented soon. So the roadmap is Microsoft's plan that says, look, these are the things we want to implement, the new features that we're developing within the next 6 to 12 months. So if you see something on the roadmap, that generally means it's not currently available, but it will be available very shortly. And lots of people have requested it. So I can see one other one there that I can probably answer, and then I can see there's some questions there as well, probably more relating to the Power App side that you might be able to take over, Kieran. So the other question that I have here is can people join my Teams meetings if they've not got a Microsoft license? So does everyone involved need to have a Microsoft license? The answer to that is yes, they absolutely can. So only the host of the meeting, so that the person creating and hosting the Teams event or the Teams meeting, the Teams call, needs the license to create the event. People can then access that through the link provided to them, and Microsoft provides multiple online platforms for them to join Teams meetings on their own without their own Office 365 subscription. So you don't need to be concerned about, we've got a meeting for 6 people, only one of us has Teams. Do the other 5 people need to quickly run out and pay for Microsoft as well? If you've got the Microsoft licensing yourself, you create the meeting and everyone else can jump in and meet with you as normal without additional cost. So Kieran, there's some Power Apps related Q&As in the Q&A as well, if you would like to touch on.
So we've got a question about Power BI. So how quickly can you go from data to visualization? That's a good question, because there's 2 parts to any type of business intelligence effort. And while yes, you can go quickly from your data to having a dashboard that you can actually deploy to your whole team, you have to always keep in mind that, garbage in, garbage out. You have to make sure that data is well structured, it's clean. Maybe there's mappings that need to be done. So you have to spend a lot of time on that data side of it. I often say that when you're working with visualizations and dashboards, 20% of your time is spent in the sexy side, building that dashboard and making it look pretty and making sure people can consume it. 80% of your time is spent really looking at that data, making sure it's clean, pulling it together from various different sources and mapping that. So no, but that's a really good question about Power BI. There is another question about what version of Office is Power BI in, and maybe Joel, you can probably take that one.
Yeah, so look, I mean, there's a couple of versions of Power BI. You've got sort of Power BI and Power BI Pro. Look, probably the most cost-effective licensing in terms of the functionality, as well as Microsoft 365 Business Premium in terms of the Power Apps and Power BI. But again, look, reach out. There's sort of multiple ways you can purchase some of these things instead of as part of the business subscription. You can purchase them as add-ons on their own, so you can sort of mix and match. Say if you wanted to use Business Standard instead of Business Premium, or even if Business Premium wasn't enough and you're wanting to add on additional things, on top in Microsoft's enterprise licensing range as well. Likewise, there's options for licensing to purchase additional storage if you're running out of storage in terms of the data you're keeping in Power Apps. So yeah, so sort of a mixture of an answer there. Sorry, not too clear. I would say Business Premium, but depends on particular requirements and needs, and can be made to work in a variety of ways if you require it.
Just one other, Joel, around Power Apps. So it's been asked, can it be used outside the organization? And that's a very interesting question as well, because typically Power Apps is used inside the Microsoft environment for that organization. But Microsoft have released this thing called portals for Power Apps, where there's the ability, a little bit more work in the background to get it going, but the ability to share those apps and at least access to those apps to people outside your organization. So, like, for example, if you are your freight is being managed by an outside logistics company and you want to get your proof of delivery really quickly, you could potentially, using that portal and the Power Apps, provide that to the outside logistics provider, where they take a photo, put in the information, and it goes straight into your SharePoint. So again, it's really showing that Microsoft are pushing the boundaries on what all of these applications and the programs can actually do, and really helping us with all the problems we have every single day.
Great. Thank you very much for that, mate. Okay, so I think in terms of the Q&A, I think that wraps up. I can't see any additional questions, but thank you very much, everyone, for coming today. We really appreciate your time, particularly those that are still here. I understand that we've run a little over, and particular thanks to Kieran for that fantastic presentation. I definitely learned a lot. Like I said, he's an absolute whiz, and these tools are incredibly powerful. So we really appreciate chiming in today with your expertise.
Thank you very much, Joe, and thank you everybody as well from my side. Really enjoyed being able to share everything.
Great. Well, look, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much to everyone for attending. As I mentioned, it is being recorded, so we can absolutely get a copy to you if you would like to watch this back or pass it on to colleagues, customers. And please do reach out to myself or Kieran, email, phone, LinkedIn, however you want to get a hold of us. We are both more than happy to help.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. All right. Thank you very much, guys. I think we'll wrap it up there. Like I said, appreciate your time, and absolutely keep in touch. As I mentioned, we will be doing some more of these soon, and so we would love to have you join us again. Thanks very much, guys. See you later.